Victorian era was a time of remarkable progress, groundbreaking innovation, and fascinatingly strange traditions. Queen Victoria's reign from 1837 to 1901 was an age defined by contrasts: grandeur and poverty, science and superstition, refinement and eccentricity. While the era is often celebrated for its technological advancements and literary masterpieces, its peculiar customs reveal a society navigating the challenges of rapid change. Today, we'll explore the quirks and oddities that make this period uniquely captivating. Victorians had an obsession with death that permeated every corner of life. Mourning wasn't just a personal process, it was a societal expectation, with strict rules dictating behavior, attire, and even the duration of grief. Widows were expected to wear black for up to 2 years, transitioning slowly to shades of gray or lavender. But mourning attire wasn't just limited to women. Men also wore black suits and armbands, while children often donned somber clothing to mark the loss of a family member. Even the fashion industry catered to this obsession. Mourning jewelry, often made from jet or even the hair of the deceased, became popular keepsakes. Queen Victoria herself wore a locket containing Prince Albert's hair for the rest of her life. Perhaps most haunting were the post-mortem photographs. Families posed their deceased loved ones as if they were still alive, seated in chairs holding flowers, or even placed among living relatives. To soften the eerie effect, artists often painted open eyes onto the photographs. Funerals in the Victorian era were often grand and meticulously orchestrated for those who could afford them. Horse-drawn hearses, adorned with striking black plumes, transported the coffin, followed by mourners dressed in somber, coordinated attire. The presence of professional mourners added an air of formality and drama to the proceedings. Silent mourners, known as mutes, walked solemnly behind the coffin, embodying quiet grief, while another type of professional mourner, known as moirologists, expressed sorrow more openly by wailing or lamenting aloud. These practices underscored the Victorian emphasis on ritual and the outward display of mourning. For the Victorians, death wasn't something to be feared. It was something to be ritualized, remembered, and even embraced as part of life. Beauty standards in the Victorian era were as rigid as a tightly laced corset. Pale skin was the height of fashion, symbolizing purity and wealth. Women achieved this by applying lead-based powders and arsenic wafers, oblivious to their toxic effects. Some even used leeches to drain blood and enhance their pallor. Hair was another major focus. Women spent hours creating elaborate hairstyles, often with the help of maids. Hairpieces made from human or animal hair were common, and hair that fell out during brushing was collected to create hair rats for added volume. For teeth, Victorians used abrasive powders that often damaged enamel, leading to early tooth loss. Wealthy individuals replaced their teeth with dentures made from ivory or human teeth, a practice that sometimes led to grave robbing. The corset, while fashionable, was a health hazard. Women endured fainting spells, digestive issues, and even rib deformities to achieve the desired hourglass figure. To accommodate this fragility, fainting couches became a staple in upper-class homes. Men, too, had their grooming rituals. Mutton chop sideburns were all the rage, and a well-maintained beard signified maturity and respectability. Victorian dining was a spectacle of refinement and oddities. Upper-class meals adhered to strict etiquette. For example, asparagus was eaten with one's fingers, while soup had to be sipped silently from the side of the spoon. A misstep at the table could lead to social embarrassment. The food itself was often extravagant and at times strange. Aspic, a gelatin made from meat stock, was a popular base for savory dishes. Turtle soup was a delicacy, but for those who couldn't afford it, mock turtle soup made from a calf's head was a common substitute. Victorian desserts were a visual feast. Cakes were decorated with ornate sugar sculptures, and boiled sweets were dyed in vivid colors, thanks to new chemical dyes, some of which contained toxic ingredients like arsenic. For the working class, meals were far more modest. Porridge, bread, and potatoes formed the staple diet. Yet, even among the poor, jellied eels and meat pies were considered treats. Drinks also played a significant role in Victorian life. Afternoon tea became a ritual for the upper classes, complete with delicate sandwiches and pastries. Meanwhile, the working class frequented pubs, where gin was nicknamed Mother's Ruin due to its prevalence and effects. The Victorian era was rife with superstitions, many of which were deeply embedded in daily life. Spilling salt was thought to bring bad luck unless a pinch was thrown over the left shoulder to blind the devil. Breaking a mirror foretold 7 years of misfortune, while the sighting of a black cat could signify either good or bad luck, depending on local folklore. Victorian homes often featured horseshoes nailed above doorways to invite good fortune, and chimneys were considered protective against malevolent spirits. Personal talismans, such as a rabbit's foot or a sprig of rosemary, were commonly carried to ward off harm. Death superstitions were especially prevalent and meticulously observed. It was customary to stop clocks at the exact moment of death to prevent the spirit from lingering in the home. Mirrors were covered to ensure the deceased soul wouldn't become trapped within their reflection. The positioning of the body also held significance. Removing a corpse from the home feet first was believed to prevent the spirit from looking back and beckoning another family member to follow. Even funeral attire reflected superstition. In the case of a child's death, white ribbons were used instead of traditional black, symbolizing the purity of the soul and offering a sense of protection. The fear of being buried alive gave rise to peculiar inventions, like the safety coffin, which included features such as air tubes and bells to alert the living if the supposedly deceased awoke underground. These practices and beliefs highlight the Victorians' deep fascination with death and their attempts to manage the unknown through ritual and superstition. Medicine in the Victorian era was both groundbreaking and baffling. On the one hand, advancements like anesthesia and antiseptics saved countless lives. On the other, many practices bordered on the bizarre. Bloodletting, for instance, was still widely used, with leeches considered indispensable in a doctor's toolkit. These slimy creatures were thought to draw out bad blood and restore balance to the body's humors, a theory dating back to medieval times. Patent medicines, or cure-alls, promised relief from every ailment imaginable, but were often little more than alcohol or opium in a bottle. Advertisements claimed these elixirs could treat everything from indigestion to nervous disorders, and they were especially popular among the middle class. Victorians also turned to hydrotherapy, which ranged from drinking mineral water to enduring freezing cold baths. Institutions like Malvern in England became famous for their water cure retreats, where patients were wrapped in wet sheets or doused with cold water to invigorate their health. Electricity was another fad. Devices like electric belts and shock chairs were marketed as remedies for impotence, paralysis, and even melancholy. While some were based on emerging electrical science, others were little more than gimmicks. To combat the era's notorious smog and industrial pollution, fresh air was considered a panacea. Sanatoriums in the countryside catered to tuberculosis patients, while seaside resorts like Brighton and Scarborough attracted city dwellers eager to take the sea air. The Victorian job market included some truly unusual professions, many born out of the era's unique challenges and quirks. Knocker-uppers were human alarm clocks. Armed with long poles, they tapped on windows to wake clients, a vital service before the invention of the mechanical alarm clock. Some even used pea shooters to ensure accuracy. Rat catchers, indispensable in crowded urban areas, faced dangerous work. Using ferrets, terriers, or even their bare hands, they captured disease-carrying rodents. Some became minor celebrities, showcasing their skills in public rat-baiting contests. Another hazardous job was that of the leech collector. These workers waded barefoot into ponds to attract leeches, enduring painful bites to supply doctors with their favorite bloodletting tools. Chimney sweeps, often young children, risked their lives climbing narrow, soot-filled shafts. Many suffered respiratory illnesses or injuries, but the job persisted until public outcry led to stricter regulations in the mid-19th century. Other peculiar trades included crossing sweepers, who cleared paths through muddy streets for a small fee, and tosher scavengers, who combed sewers for valuables. These jobs, though unglamorous, were essential to the functioning of Victorian cities. Victorian leisure activities often blended the bizarre with the macabre. Spiritualism, for instance, became a phenomenon. Mediums held seances, claiming to contact the dead through table tipping, spirit boards, or even ectoplasm excretions. This trend captivated both skeptics and believers, with Queen Victoria herself rumored to consult mediums. For more theatrical thrills, Victorians flocked to freak shows. These exhibitions featured individuals with unusual physical traits or talents, such as the bearded lady or conjoined twins. While exploitative by today's standards, these shows provided a rare source of income for their performers. Public executions, though phased out mid-century, remained a morbidly popular spectacle in the early Victorian period, drawing massive crowds eager to witness justice or cruelty on display. Parlor games were another form of amusement in the Victorian era. Snapdragon, a game where participants plucked raisins from a flaming bowl of brandy, was a thrilling party favorite. Victorians also enjoyed collecting curiosities. Cabinets of the wonder displayed oddities like shrunken heads, taxidermied animals, and geological specimens, merging entertainment with education. The Victorian era's inventors weren't just practical. They were imaginative, sometimes to a fault. Many creations aimed to solve peculiar problems, though not all were successful. The anti-garrotte collar, for example, was a bulky leather device designed to protect wearers from street crime, particularly strangulation attempts by thieves known as garrotters. This invention is attributed to James Flanagan, whose design offered a measure of safety by preventing attackers from achieving a grip on the neck. Despite its effectiveness, the discomfort and unwieldy design made it unpopular for daily wear. Another captivating aspect of the Victorian era was the fascination with automata, intricate clockwork creations that combined artistry and engineering. While these devices were primarily novelties or decorative displays rather than practical tools, their craftsmanship was astounding. This fascination with mechanical ingenuity drew inspiration from pioneers like Pierre-Jacques Droz, the 18th century Swiss watchmaker who created marvels such as the Writer and the Draftsman. In the Victorian era, innovators like Henri Maillardet continued this tradition with his automaton that could sketch detailed images, and Charles Babbage, often considered the father of the computer, whose work on mechanical computation reflected the era's obsession with engineering precision. Victorian fashion also inspired peculiar inventions, such as the electric corset. This device, marketed as a means to improve posture and promote health through mild electric stimulation, was sold by companies like London's Pulver-Macher Galvanic Company. Despite bold claims of its benefits, the electric corset failed to gain widespread popularity due to skepticism and discomfort. Victorian courtship was a game of subtlety and symbolism, with strict rules governing romantic interactions. Floriography, the language of flowers, allowed couples to express emotions without words. A bouquet of forget-me-nots symbolized true love, while marigolds hinted at jealousy. Fans were another tool of flirtation. Their position and movement conveyed coded messages. For example, a fan held over the heart meant, "You have won my love," while a fan dropped to the floor signaled, "We are enemies." Victorian love letters were heartfelt and elaborate. Men and women often enclosed pressed flowers or locks of hair as tokens of affection. Writing desks became treasured possessions, stocked with fine paper, sealing wax, and decorative pens. Public outings, such as strolls in the park or visits to museums, provided rare opportunities for couples to interact under the watchful eyes of chaperones. Even accidental hand-holding was considered scandalous without proper supervision. By the late Victorian period, matchmaking agencies and personal ads began to emerge, offering more direct paths to romance, a sign of changing times. The Victorian era was a kaleidoscope of the peculiar and the profound. Its strange customs and quirky practices reflect a society both deeply traditional and boldly innovative. Whether through mourning rituals, bizarre inventions, or unconventional entertainment, the Victorians left a legacy as fascinating as it is unique. What do you find most intriguing about the Victorian era? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more journeys through history.